Hello, hello, and welcome once again to the David Messiah YouTube channel, where our watchwords are to teach and to build back up the kingdom of Zion. And my name is Sidney Thomas. I'm the founder and the moderator of this YouTube channel. The title of this talk is Genocide, Righteous and Wicked. Genocide, righteous and wicked. And it arises out of what is going on now in the so-called Middle East and what the so-called State of Israel, 1948 State of Israel, has been engaged in terms of that Israel versus Hamas war that is ongoing, in which, among other things, that 1948 State of Israel is charged with conducting genocide, which in the sight of man and in the sight of the Luciferian consensus is necessarily a wicked thing. And the first point I want to make is that genocide as such is not a wicked thing in the sight of God, not necessarily so, although it usually is and often is. But let me first start by defining genocide. And that definition, we don't need to get too precise about it. Let's leave it fairly loose. And the working definition I will use for the purpose of this talk is simply that genocide is the killing or extermination of an ethnic group of people. Ethnic, which could be tribal, which could be of a nation, which could be of a religion, which could be any sort of grouping that to those carrying out the genocide are considered inconvenient or objectionable in one way or another. So that is genocide. It is defined essentially by the victim. You can have where one group is carrying out that genocide against one other group, but you can also have where a group of groups is carrying out the genocide against that target group. But first let me establish that in the sight of the Most High, genocide can be a righteous thing. So let's go first to, I'll go to Obadiah, where the matter is plain. I'll start there, and then I'll come back to 1 Samuel chapter 15. And in Obadiah verse 18, where we have, and the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for Yahweh the Lord hath spoken it. So if there is not any to be remaining of the house of Esau, that by definition means it is a genocide. But in that very same sentence it says, for Yahweh hath spoken it. So if this is at the command of Yahweh, then that would have to be considered a righteous genocide. Oh, genocide being righteous. The Luciferian consensus today will not countenance such a thing for obvious reasons, because Esau actually is that wicked one who has brought this condemnation upon himself. So Esau wants and has made it now a consensus, a global consensus, that genocide per se is a crime against humanity. I think that is there defined somewhere in the United Nations charter or whatever matters arising out of the United Nations charter. That there is a crime of genocide that could be prosecuted under international law through the International Criminal Court, for example, or the International Court of Justice, one or the other of those two. And yes, people have been charged with that crime of genocide. I believe that fellow there in Serbia, what's his name again? Milosevic, I think he was brought up on that charge, and various African presidents and former potentates likewise. So the United Nations has sought to make genocide per se a crime, even though here we have in Scripture where the Most High Himself is mandating, not merely prophesying, but mandating the genocide of Esau. So how does that come about? Well, let's go back now to 1 Samuel chapter 15, for here is where we had a case where King Saul of Israel was mandated to go and carry out a genocide upon the Amalekites. Let me start here at verse 18. And this is Prophet Samuel speaking to Saul. And the Lord Yahweh sent thee on a journey and said, Go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they be consumed. That by definition is genocide. Wherefore then didst thou not obey the voice of the Lord Yahweh, but didst fly upon the spoil, and didst evil in the sight of Yahweh? So we have another thought coming in here, which is the idea of the spoil. The title of the talk is what? Genocide, Righteous and Wicked. And spoil obtained through genocide is that key concept that makes the distinction between the righteous kind of genocide, where the Most High uses one group or set of groups to bring judgment upon another group for wickedness of that second group, and that judgment is in the form precisely of genocide. But when that is the case, you do not exercise or carry out that genocide with the idea of obtaining booty or with the idea of obtaining spoil. It is the very same when a court of law condemns a wicked person to death, for example, for the sin and crime of murder. The executioner doesn't get to take booty, the property left behind by the one so executed. Because now you're confusing two things. You're confusing motives here. The motive is to do the will of God, carry out a just sentence, righteous sentence for the wickedness of the one so condemned. And if that gets confused with booty, with spoil, with obtaining a benefit from carrying out such execution, now the matter gets entirely confused, you understand? So let me carry on reading. And verse 20, and Saul said unto Samuel, Yea, I have obeyed. He's saying he has obeyed the voice of Yahweh, and have gone the way which Yahweh sent me, and have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. Well, straight away, this is a prevarication, because if he's brought Agag, the king of Amalek, then he has not destroyed the Amalekites. He's out of his own, thoughts, and out of his own mind, extended a certain mercy to the king of the Amalekites, Agag. And now Saul is trying to blame now the people. He says, but the people took of the spoil, sheep and oxen, the chief of the things which should have been utterly destroyed. And he's now saying to do what with it? To sacrifice unto Yahweh thy God in Gilgal. And Samuel said, hath Yahweh as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord Yahweh? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. Verse 23, for rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord Yahweh, he hath also rejected thee from being king. So we see the spoil gets in the middle. Now, there are many cases in history where the heathen, and I will go now to a definition of heathen, the heathen has committed genocide. For example, there's a case of that land of Tasmania there, down in the far South Pacific, further south even than Australia, and I think further south even as New Zealand, where the Aboriginal people that were there were completely wiped out. Completely wiped out by the British invader. Now, here is an example of wicked genocide. Why was it wicked? Because it was motivated not by the righteous mandate of the Most High to carry out a sentence, so to say, of genocide for wrongdoing by those people, but it was to steal their land. It was for spoil. It was for booty. And this is what the heathen has, by definition, that's what the heathen is. That's what the heathen peoples have done. And so we need to be clear, because the word heathen is one of those words subject to that need to render or to return unto the people of pure language, because it is a word that has been deliberately confused and confounded to mean, in effect, some people that either, don't worship the one God. So in other words, any people who are not Christian, Muslim, or Jew are by definition heathen. Okay, to sort of lay a sort of a red herring so that we don't know where that word really comes from and what it really means. And this is one of the words Mosai had me to address. And in the book, The Coming of David Messiah, which I have up on the screen, in chapter 2, Basic Hebrew and Hidden Meanings, he had me to address that word and really what it means. And I read from it. Section 2.4 there, entitled Heathen. Another of those hidden words whose Hebrew origin and meaning have been obscured is heathen. This word is now rectified and its true etymology and meaning revealed using the format later used in chapter 3 for the rectified names of those in the line of inheritance. The original Hebrew form is hat-hatan. Its literal meaning is from the Hebrew spelling in terms of the pictographic depiction. There are 4 consonants. It's he, repeated, so he, tet, tau. He is as the English equivalent of letter H, and its pictographic depiction. It shows something that sort of alludes to the breath. Tet, its pictographic depiction alludes to something like a basket, and tor, its pictographic depiction is that of a sign, a mark. So from the Hebrew spelling he, het, tet, tau, and associated pictographs, the literal meaning is of a group. That's depicted by that letter tet, denoted or pictographically denoted by a basket that comes breathing hard. He, he. So that's breath, doubled for emphasis, coming upon some target, tau, which is the mark. The applicable meaning here is of a nation or group of people that goes into a land that is not theirs. They have no title to the land, but they're greedy for plunder. They want to take possession of that land that belongs to someone else, to take from the people there what does not belong to them, and to rape, to pillage, to plunder, enslave, and or colonize the people / land that are the target. So under this understanding and definition, the colonial powers are the heathen powers. And what is the scriptural proof? It's there in 1 Maccabees chapter 3 verse 48, which says, quote, "And laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen," who? The heathen, the Hatatan, had sought to paint the likeness of their images. So they're trying to take what belongs to someone else. Continuing, here at 1 Maccabees 3:48, we see a figure for that which is called heathen. It refers to the Greeks who had invaded the land of Israel. The third kingdom of the Gentiles, initiated by Alexander circa 330 BC, and his Ptolemaic and Seleucid successors. There they sought to Hellenize the Israelites. Hellenize means to make remake to remake the Israelites into the image of the Greeks. Another word for which is Hellas. So Hellenize means to Greekify in effect. That is, make them at point of sword, if necessary, to adopt Greek ways, and to the point of violating the law of Yahweh. 1 Maccabees chapter 1 verses 39 to 49 refers in particular, First Maccabees chapter 1 verses 48 to 49, and I quote, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation. Verse 49, to the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. Furthermore, they sought to expropriate to themselves the scriptural gift given to the chosen. That's a typo there, sought, should be S-O-U-G-H-T. They sought to erase the Negro from the book and to replace them with their own images. This was an extreme case of the denigration or whiting out project. And the section there on orthographic and phonetic drift. The drift from Hatatan to heathen is a mere anglicization, easy to see. And the key point there in under notes A, along with the anglicization of the word has come a deliberate twisting of its meaning. Know that in its literal and applicable meaning, there is no suggestion that creed or religion has anything to do with it. Rather, it is a matter of a behavior. One could be a pagan or Gentile, yet not necessarily be a heathen in its original meaning. And one could be a Christian, Muslim, or Jew, professing a belief in quote-unquote monotheism, yet be a perfect heathen, qua original definition. And note B, indeed this has been the case. For it was the Christians, the Muslims, and the fake Jews who have been the greatest heathens on the planet, qua the original Hebrew definition. They were the ones that went everywhere colonizing, enslaving, plundering, raping, and pillaging what belonged to others. It was Christians, conquistadors, and others that came to the Americas and stole the land, engaged in the transatlantic slave trade, and later carved up Africa, Berlin Conference, circa 1890s, amongst themselves. It was Muslims that spread Islamic empire by the sword and enslaved subject peoples as they did so. The trans-Sahara slave trade predated the transatlantic and outlasted it by more than 100 years. Moreover, the Muslim Arabs and their Islamicized Hamitic Janjaweed armies were the inland enslavers that provided victims to the transatlantic slave trade, as well as to the earlier established trans-Sahara and trans-Arabian slave trade. Okay, so and that was what went on there in Tasmania, which ended in the complete annihilation of the original peoples, the aboriginal peoples of that land, which were a Negro people. And it was the same with Australia. They went into Australia and they concocted a legal fiction called terra nullius so that they could legally take possession and title of that land which did not belong to them, which the Most High had not given to them. And they indeed went about a genocide upon the Aboriginal people of that land. Okay? It wasn't complete as it was in Tasmania, but that is what it was. Okay. So the point I'm trying to get at is that genocide can be a righteous genocide if the Most High ordains it. as punishment for a certain group of people. In the particular case earlier addressed, the Amalekites, who did wrong in the sight of the Most High, and the Most High gave sentence upon that offending people, and it was to the tribes of Israel, and in particular Saul, there in 1 Samuel chapter 15, to carry out that execution of sentence upon the Amalekites. But the people, Saul did not control his people, so that the people went to take booty, to take the sheep, to take the goats, to take the gold, to take the silver, which is what the heathens do. And when the heathens do it, it attracts condemnation by the Most High, because that is not a righteous genocide. That is not a genocide carried out pursuant to a sentence pronounced by the Most High for wrongdoing. That is simply going someplace, using the edge of the sword to rape, to pillage, to plunder, to take booty, and to take possession of that which belongs to another people. That is wicked genocide. So I hope that is clear. Now, having hopefully made clear that distinction, now we can address, who are these Amalekites? Because that is an interesting question in and of itself. Who are these Amalekites that have attracted the Most High's condemnation? So let me go to Blue Letter Bible, and I hope it well, first of all, let me address the origin. The Amalekites are a branch of Esau. Yes, Genesis chapter 36, verse 12, where we see, and Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. So Amalek is a grandson of Esau, born to a concubine, Timnah, of Eliphaz, one of Esau's sons. And that explains even the name itself, Amalek, because Amalek means our brother. So our brother Amalek, meaning to suggest that Amalek was, because he was born not of the wife Ada, but of the concubine. He was, so to say, a brother of that other mother, which was the concubine Timnah. So he got the name Amalek, which means basically our brother. So from the standpoint of the other sons of Esau and their children. So that's who Amalek was. But what was the sin of Amalek? The sin of Amalek was to, where can I find that? I think that's in Exodus chapter something. Okay, that will do. Deuteronomy 25, verse 17. Remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way when you were come forth out of Egypt. So it is for wrongdoing that a sentence of genocide has been pronounced upon Amalek. Yes, there we go. And I'll start at verse 2. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Okay? Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. So this was a sentence of genocide pronounced upon Amalek, because Amalek laid in wait for Israel when they were come up out of Egypt, and indeed they attacked the stragglers as the people of Israel were on foot and on carts and so forth on their journey. There were stragglers. So rather than meet them with food and water and give them help along the way, they indeed actually did quite the opposite. They laid in wait and they actually attacked stragglers. So that and elsewhere in Scripture it says, and they obviously did not fear God. So Amalek has that characteristic, that they do not fear God. And the king of the Amalekites, his name was what? I'm getting to a point here, because the Most High has led me to know. I asked him the question, Father, who today are the Amalekites? Yeah, 1 Samuel chapter 15, and he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites. So the king of the Amalekites is known as Agag. Well, Agag, if you understand Hebrew, remove the vowels, and the word you have is the same as the word Gog. So we see that the king of the Amalekites is known and was named essentially Gog. So you see where I'm going? Because the Most High let me to know that the Amalekites today are the Khazar Jews. That's who the Amalekites are. And it is the Khazar Jews, the head thereof, the king thereof, located in that metropolitan, in the middle of that metropolitan city of London. There's a 1 square mile district called the City of London. And every year they conduct a ceremony where they drag out 2 statues, one called Gog and the other one called Magog. And they perform whatever ceremonies related to that, but letting you to know and giving you the sign for this purpose, that Gog and Magog are identified with the very pinnacle, the very head of the Khazar people, who are the ones that control international finance out of that City of London. Okay, it is there. They own the Federal Reserve System of the United States, which is a private enterprise. They own the Bank of England, in effect. I mean, there's some, you need to get a little bit technical, because supposedly the Bank of England was nationalized, but anyway, they still own it. It is out of there that they control international trade and shipping, and Lloyd's of London is one of their sort of institutions, in terms of providing insurance to shipping and etc. And they associate themselves with Gog and Magog. And Gog here is the king of Amalek. And the Most High let me to know that Amalek today are the Khazar Jews. And those are the very same people that established and are behind that modern 1948 state of Israel. They're the Shield of David, the Mogen David, as they call it. Shield of David is also on the flag of the House of the Red Shield. Okay? Listen, this gets kind of very deep. So there it is, the ones who are the agents of, and in fact are themselves Khazar Jews over there in the 1948 state of Israel, the Amalekites themselves, and other ones trying to wage genocidal war upon the Palestinians. And in fact, in some of Netanyahu's pronouncements, he indeed quotes scripture to try to justify the genocidal program on which they have embarked to get rid of all the Palestinians. Now, there is indeed a sentence pronounced upon Gaza, that's there in scripture, but so whether the Most High is using Amalek first to conduct a genocide of Gaza and Philistia, the Palestinians, Okay? So that they kind of wipe each other out, I don't know. But the point of this talk is simply to make the point that genocide per se has a righteous aspect to it, as well as the more or less obvious and visceral wicked aspect to it. And Amalek, because he also controls the United Nations, okay, has fabricated what I call a Luciferian consensus around the world with ideas such as, here every creed and race finds an equal place. The idea that all men are created equal. The idea that genocide per se is a crime against humanity, regardless of what the Most High may or may not have ordained. Those are the ideas that I want to challenge in this talk, and to emphasize that indeed the Most High has let me address another point. These are the ideas that I want to bring to you in this talk. Because the Most High has said elsewhere that He will Yes, Exodus chapter 17. For he said, because Yahweh had sworn that Yahweh will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. And these are the Khazar people in this generation. And they answer to Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, and Revelation chapter 3, verse 9. Most High is having war against them. And what is go to Revelation chapter 3, verse 9. Yes, he says, behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. So it will not end well for Amalek, true Amalek, which in this day and age are the Khazar Jews over there in that state of Israel. And let me also go to Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. So everything is playing itself out as it should. Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. Where it says, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty. Here he's referring to the children of Jacob, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. And that is why a sentence of genocide indeed has been pronounced upon Amalek and upon Esau for the crimes that they have committed. And it falls indeed in the first instance here in verse 18 of Obadiah. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame. And the Most High has led me to know that indeed Joseph here is Russia, Brother Putin. And the house of Esau for stubble. And they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau. And this is essentially Amalek in particular, for Yahweh hath spoken it. So with that, I give all praise, I give all glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, and to those still listening, I say Shalom.